So today we're going to talk all about sleep, why we sleep, how to get better sleep, optimizing your sleep, and also some of the dangers of not getting enough sleep. Sleep is super crucial, as you will see throughout this podcast. So we're going to have a really good discussion on it. Let me know down in the comments, do you currently struggle with sleep, or is it something that you ultimately have a good grasp of? I am somebody who used to deal with a lot of insomnia, so I'm curious if you're currently going through those same struggles. But ultimately, I think a good starting point for talking about sleep is first talking about why we sleep to begin with, right? Knowing and understanding the reasonings, at least from what we currently know in the data, of why we sleep can lead us to know some of the potential decrements, health decrements long-term if we don't get proper sleep. So why do we currently sleep? What's so useful about it? For some of us, it's a great way to avoid the tasks and the rigors of the day. I know I get kind of lazy sometimes and I like a good nap, but sleep is super crucial. Why do we sleep? So let's think about what happens throughout the day. What do we do throughout the day? There's numerous interactions we have with people. So we're talking with people, we're putting some physical demands on it. So all of these things are little different micro stresses that basically will build up over time, right? So throughout the day, these stresses, we need to recover from them. We need to replenish all the, let's say, the physical demands of whatever our job is and just living. There's a lot of cellular damage that actually happens inside our body that needs to be repaired. There's so many other things that go throughout our body that essentially we need to recover from. But I also said on the flip side too, your emotional stress, right? When we're talking about your mental capacity to understand things, you need to sleep because this kind of offers a way of a informal therapy, if you will. So this is a lot of times where memory formation happens, thinking, your clarity. That's sometimes why they say sleep on it. Often when you do this, it's because your brain is processing all those decisions from the day when you sleep. In addition to this, dreaming, this is something that's still being widely researched, but dreaming, a lot of people think that this is actually another form of that informal therapy. So it's kind of trying to process all those mental stressors and just understand what it is. And dreams, from what we know currently, is what they think is a way to do that. So essentially, the main reasons why we sleep, it's to offer us both physical and some mental reconstruction from the stresses put on it throughout the day. Just being alive is extremely stressful. There's a lot of things that your body is dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So when we think about that, when we sleep, we are literally undoing all the stress and all the damage. And I say damage not in a bad way. That might sound bad off the cusp, but it's not bad. It's something we all have to deal with. It's just the fact that there's stress and damage that we need to work through, that ultimately sleep will be a good catalyst to help us do that. So since we know what sleep is for, at least mainly right now, a common question that I often get asked is, how much sleep do you really need? We assess that we sleep for recovering our body, right? So we know it's important, recover from that stress, but how much sleep do we really need? And the general guideline, as it is currently, 7 to 9 hours is usually a good ballpark. Below that, so say below 7 hours of sleep, that's when we start to notice a lot of decrements in your overall health, which we'll actually go further into in the rest of this podcast. There's a lot of potential bad things that are going to happen to you if you neglect your sleep and deprive yourself of sleep. And maybe not even deprive yourself, maybe even just get less than that recommended 7 to 9 hours. There are still going to be health concerns and health decrements. And I will say this is a general guideline. With that said though, you are very individual as a person. So your sleep, you may be able to get by on 6 hours, feel good. That might actually be enough for you. While others need a lot more. Somebody who's maybe a high-level athlete, they're probably going to need a little bit more sleep. Genetics do play a role in this, but reaching 7 to 9 hours is a very good recommendation. And I also want to say too, when we're talking about this is the time spent in bed. This is the time spent in bed. So a lot of people get sleep time in bed and actual just simple time in bed different. So for example, if I go to bed and I'm in bed for 9 hours, I might only be sleeping for 7.5 to 8 hours, since when we're in bed, we often toss and turn. We get up to go use the restroom in the middle of the night. There's so many things that happen where we're waking up throughout the day that it actually decreases that overall sleep time, or what we consider sleep time. But just remember, if you're getting 7 to 9 hours where you're in bed, you might be getting a little less. And I think this is a good point to note, and something that I always talk to with individuals, because they're thinking like, oh, I'm getting 8 hours of sleep, great. But if you're somebody who maybe has sleep apnea, for example, or just can't fall asleep very quickly, can't fall asleep very well, you get up a couple times through the middle of the night, you might be waking up 30 to 45 minutes just in those little instances. So just something to consider. And then also too, why is it so hard to get this 7 to 9 hours of sleep? Why is it so hard? We could be stressed out. Stress plays a role. Maybe your anxiety is increased because of that stress. There's lots of distractions. So maybe some good distractions like family distractions, or maybe some quote unquote bad distractions, like you have your, what did it say, like scrolling on the phone, right? That's another huge distraction that people always have. Maybe there's just something on the news. Maybe you're just highly distractible. Some people just can't pay attention very well. And then I also think it's very hard to get this 7 to 9 hours because people think we need to consistently grind through our life, stay up and just do a bunch of work without any rest at all. And this is a huge problem because it's something that society is built off of. Society basically dictates, if you are somebody who's sleeping, right, you're considered lazy, versus somebody who maybe goes in and works earlier at the office, right? You're deemed as somebody who's a good employee. But that's a huge problem because, again, as we'll discuss in the podcast long term, sleep is super crucial and can lead to a lot of bad issues. Lots of bad issues. One of the other things to mention, a couple other things to mention, sleep depends on your age too. If you're somebody who's developing, maybe a little bit younger, you're likely going to need a lot more sleep versus somebody who's older. You're basically just not developing. And when you're developing, your body is using so many different systems. It's rapid fire, needs a lot of recovery, right, when we're talking about developing. So just something to consider. Usually older adults, and this is typically why older adults do sleep less. One, they have a lot of sleep disturbances, but also two, they just don't need as much to help them regulate. With that said though, it should still be a primary goal to get as much sleep as you need. It shouldn't just be like, oh, I'm getting older, and usually when you're older you don't sleep as much, so I'm just gonna not sleep as much. No, you should still get enough sleep for yourself, and this is going to be kind of dependent on where you're at individually. And just remember that lack of sleep is very fluid too. So for some individuals, as I mentioned, having 6 hours of sleep is going to be plenty for them, while others, they're going to need quite a bit more. And it's really going to be something that you need to find for yourself. But general guidelines, 7 to 9 hours is a super good starting point. So I think one of the most important things that we ultimately need to discuss is how sleep deprivation affects health, just generally speaking, and your overall fat gain. So something I want to consider, we're going to go over a few points before I actually give some of the actual potential downsides of being sleep deprived. But sleep deprivation is actually basically the same cognitive-wise as drunk driving. And this might be an insane thing for people to think of. It's like, oh, if I don't get enough sleep at night, it's almost like I took a shot at the bar. Yes, they have actually done studies on this, and people perform the same both physically and mentally if they have not had enough sleep compared to somebody who is actually considered drunk over the standard legal limit to drive. So that should already be a huge red flag of how much a lack of sleep is. Also, another thing I want to mention, daylight savings time. We're all familiar with this. In the spring, we lose an hour. In the fall, we gain an hour. So we get a little extra sleep in the fall. In the spring, we actually lose that hour. So when this happens in the springtime, when we lose that hour, heart attacks the next day, as in cardiac events, increase 20 to 25%. In addition to that, in the fall, heart attacks decrease 20 to 25% after that full-time daylight savings happens. So just from one day of poor sleep, when it comes to daylight savings time, an increased risk of heart attack, 20 to 25% the next day. These rates are insane. So that just goes to show you how important sleep is, not just long-term, but also for literally one day. And a lot of people are getting very chronically poor sleep. So this is all stacking. This is stacking long-term. This is a huge issue. It can lead to a lot of different health concerns. We'll discuss those in just a second. But think about, as we talked about in the previous section, metabolism, as in all the different things that needs to keep your body alive, all of those things that happen daily, it's very stressful. It's very demanding. So if you think about it, if you're taking away your body's opportunity to repair and recover from that, guess what? Your body is really going to start shutting down, as we'll talk about right now. If you're enjoying this too, please like the video. I greatly appreciate it. It helps out the channel, and maybe even subscribe if you're enjoying it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is irritability. This is something that a lot of people experience when they have poor sleep. They're likely not as rational. They'll lash out on people. They just won't feel like in the mood to have good conversations. And this is clearly a huge issue when we're trying to have good interpersonal communication with other people. Just being generally irritable is not a good thing. This is one of the reasons when I talked about kind of having sleep as that mental therapy, as that informal therapy, when you are able to kind of process your emotions and process how you're feeling subconsciously, at least when you're sleeping, this is a way that it can stem into your normal life if you're not getting enough sleep. So just one example of kind of that informal therapy we talked about. One of the other issues with sleep deprivation is a decreased ability to regulate glucose, blood glucose specifically. So we're talking about somebody who, maybe if you're a diabetic, this would be a huge concern for you, because when you sleep, essentially your body can't process all the sugar, process all the carbs, and maybe even signal the insulin to go out and do its thing and help to lower that blood sugar and use it for the cells and muscles in our body. So if you are somebody who's diabetic specifically, or not even diabetic, you don't want to become diabetic, sleep helps tremendously in regulating your blood glucose. So of course, on the flip side, sleep deprivation will cause huge issues in that as well, which can also lead to weight gain, as we'll talk about in this next point. So one of the things that happens, and you probably all realize this, when you don't get enough sleep, is an increased hunger signal. And there's a hormone in your body called ghrelin. When you don't get enough sleep, your body isn't able to kind of regulate this hormone as well, and it starts sending more ghrelin signals out throughout the day, even if maybe you're not as hungry or not feeling as hungry. Maybe you've had enough food. Your body might actually be craving more just from that hunger signal, that ghrelin signal we just talked about. Which can, of course, lead to weight gain. So if you think about it, if you're hungry and you don't need calories, you don't need that food, and you're overeating on calories, this is going to be a huge reason that leads to weight gain. And having excess body weight increases the risk of diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, so many other comorbidities, and just ultimately bad things that we don't want for our health. So this is kind of a way that sleep, both directly and indirectly, can make your health much worse. So just another important point to note: increased risk of heart disease if you are not getting enough sleep, as we talked about in that statistic earlier. Heart attacks go up 20 to 25% after daylight savings time happens. So losing that hour of sleep, 20 to 25% increased risk of heart attacks. That's absolutely insane. High blood pressure kind of coincides with this as well. You'll increase your chances of getting high blood pressure. Cognition. This is something that I think, even if you're somebody who's not trying to optimize your health and maybe get the biggest, strongest muscles or even lose body fat, having good thoughts and good cognition is super important for all of your career goals, all of your study applications. Maybe you're a student, and this is where we can talk about should somebody cut down sleep to get more studying time? Short answer: they absolutely should be sleeping more versus doing more studying. So if you could pick between an hour more of sleeping and an hour more of studying, an hour more sleeping is going to do you much better, because your overall cognition goes down tremendously if you're sleep deprived. Your overall memory and ability to actually form memories goes down tremendously as well if you are not getting proper sleep. So if you're a student or you're somebody who's trying to perform at the highest level in a cognitive task, sleep is incredibly crucial. I honestly cannot understate that. In addition to this, we talked about that informal therapy that sleep kind of brings for us. When you don't get that sleep, you're a lot more reactive. You're a lot more animalistic in your thoughts and how you ultimately move through the world and decide how to do things. So this is why a lot of people, when we're talking about irritability, they might lash out more at people simply because they can't think through the process of, oh, this isn't really a time where I need to actually lash out on somebody or think too quickly. You're just not thinking through all of your thoughts. And this is in large part due, if you're sleep deprived, this ability to process and think those thoughts goes down tremendously. So one last thing with sleep too, when it comes to memory, if you don't get enough proper sleep, this can actually increase your risk of getting dementia. And dementia is essentially a whole umbrella term of a lot of different basically memory related issues. So Alzheimer's is a big one, but as you age, a lot of people will notice this. And if you sleep on top of doing a bunch of other bad behaviors, alcohol, that's a whole separate argument. I actually had a podcast we already filmed on alcohol. Go check that out on the channel. But long story short, it can increase your risk of dementia if you're not getting enough proper sleep. If you're somebody who's dealing with chronic pain, this can also be amplified tremendously if you're not getting enough proper sleep. We talked about earlier, one of the main reasons why we actually sleep is due to the recovery capacity and giving our body, all the tissues, the ability to recover. If you don't get enough sleep, you're basically inviting in inflammation into those areas that are trying to recover. So let's say your knee is painful and there's something that's trying to heal there, but it just can't. And if you don't get enough sleep, guess what? That inflammation isn't going to be able to go through its whole process and actually fix what's going wrong in your knee, for example. So getting proper sleep is a great way to help with chronic pain. And of course, on the flip side, if you don't get enough sleep, that's also going to be extremely deleterious to your overall pain capabilities. Another big thing that we notice with sleep, if you don't get enough sleep, is a lowered immune system capacity. So basically, you aren't able to fight colds quite as well. You aren't able to basically withstand anything that's thrown at you. And this is really big concern, especially if you're somebody who has cancer or maybe somebody who just gets sick a lot. if you're not giving yourself enough sleep, you're just running your body down even more so. Super big issue, and super big risk and issue. And again, when talking about chronic inflammation, this goes hand in hand with that too. So in addition to that, a lot of people may or may not know this, but poor quality sleep or sleep deprivation can actually increase your risk of depression and anxiety. So we're talking about increasing stress even more, which kind of goes to that never-ending circle of now I'm not sleeping as well because I'm more stressed. If you're feeling depressed, you might not get enough sleep. And vice versa, it actually increases your risk of depression if you aren't getting enough sleep. So these are really important things. And I mean, this list just never is ending, it seems, for not getting proper sleep. So something we really need to take more of a care of on society. If you are not getting proper sleep, you are being at a huge disservice, not only for yourself, but for others as well, and the others you work for and the others you interact with. We need that proper sleep. And I think going back to depression and anxiety, I think the reason why that this is so crucial is, again, from that informal therapy we talked about earlier. If you're not able to process the emotions as well, if your body is not able to kind of understand the different things, the different stressors, both mental and physical, going on outside your body, it's not going to be able to do that as well in your normal days. So you're just not balancing out the recovery very well. Another poor sleep habit that can come from it is you actually lose muscle mass and lose bone mineral density. So we're just talking about general lean body mass goes down if you're not sleeping as well. This is kind of like a fight or flight thing where your body is thinking, hey, I'm not able to recover, so I'm going to need to take some of these precious materials to help me with my activities of daily life. So making sure you're getting enough proper sleep is a great way to improve muscle recovery, which we know, but also at the same time, bone mineral density can go down if you're being sleep deprived. On top of that, sleep apnea. If you're somebody who struggles with sleep apnea, and sleep apnea, if you're not aware, this is basically where your neck circumference is too large. So when you're sleeping in the middle of the night, it basically presses against your trachea. And when that happens, you will wake up in the middle of the night. And it's something that causes lots of micro wake-ups. And as we talked about earlier, being in bed for 9 hours and having lots of microwave wake-ups from sleep apnea can maybe cut off 2 hours of your overall sleep time. And that's a huge issue. So if you are somebody who notices your sleep isn't as poor, this is something where you would need to get a sleep study for, and something basically where you want to see if you have sleep apnea, because this a lot of times goes undiagnosed. People are like, oh, I'm tired throughout the day, I don't know what's going on. It could be sleep apnea, which they do have machines for. In addition to this, you might need to lose a little bit of weight. A lot of times people who do have sleep apnea are a little bit overweight. But with that said, sometimes individuals who just have strong, thick necks actually have sleep apnea as well. Just something to consider. This sleep apnea will increase the poor outcomes from sleep that might happen from it. And then, of course, death is actually the last thing. And this is basically from all the different things that can lead up to death. So having poor metabolism regulation, having chronic pain or inflammation, having a lowered immune system, decrease in muscle mass, increase high blood pressure, all the things that happen from sleep increases basically the risk of all of these poor outcomes, ultimately leading to death. So death isn't literally going to happen from not getting enough sleep, although I'm sure that has happened. It's mainly all of the things that happen from being sleep deprived that will lead you to having an early death. So just something to consider. Recovering from being alive is super demanding on your body and something that should not be taken lightly at all. So this next part is something that I think a lot of students might enjoy if they're watching, but how to fix your sleep schedule. how to fix your sleep schedule. So I think when we're first talking about how to fix your sleep schedule, we need to first look at why it's so appealing to stay awake. Why would we want to stay up and just stay distracted versus actually getting some extra sleep? So one of the first things I think of is, of course, those distractions we talked about earlier. So maybe it's TV, maybe it's your phone, maybe it's your work or your studies. These are a few things that are very, very common for individuals that are letting people, basically forcing them to want to stay awake, because if you think about it, in society, I guess in long-term society, as in the caveman times, we didn't really have a reason to stay awake. There wasn't any distractions. If we were tired from the day, and likely we were because we were out hunting all day, our body's going to sleep. And it's interesting because as humans, we are somebody who actively chooses to not get enough sleep. We actively choose to not get enough sleep for our body. So those are some of the reasons why that might actually be occurring. And I think in knowing this, we can tackle resetting our sleep schedule or fixing our sleep schedule by trying to find ways to first wean off of these items. So one of the ways you can do this is by putting timers on your electronics. I know a lot of iPhones and cell phones nowadays, you can put like a 30-minute timer on it, maybe just throughout the whole day or at a specific time. It can be like a shutdown time, say from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. You're not able to use your phone just from something you've set up on. That can be a huge, crucial thing. I think another big lever to pull when we're trying to improve our sleep schedule again is to not have distractions in our bedroom. Remember, making our bedroom just about sleep and not about TV, not having our phone in there, not having all these other distractions, not having an office. That's something I personally used to have. I used to have an office actually in my room, and that really was hard for me because psychologically my brain couldn't really tell hey, is it work time, or hey, is this time that I should be spending in the bed, right? It was hard for me to say. So trying to separate the room, our sleep room, and these items that make it appealing to stay awake, TV, work, phone, is super, super crucial. Another thing that I really like, I have a bedtime timer, like a sunrise and sunset timer, where I press it 30 minutes before bedtime, and it is really bright in my room. And then after 30 minutes, it'll slowly start to lower to the point where then it goes completely off. And this is almost like setting a bedtime for me. We have wake up times in the morning. This is kind of a way for my brain and body to get ready to calm down for bedtime. And I find it very helpful for myself. You could try that as well. Just go into Google and type in sunrise alarms. Actually, I'll probably end up putting a link to one in the description of this podcast. But in addition to this, those distracting activities, we want to try to replace them with calming activities. So not only are we taking the activities like the phone or our work that might be causing us stress, might be causing us anxiety, and might be just getting us down a rabbit hole, and replacing them with the calming activities. This can be something like meditating, maybe having a conversation with your spouse, kids, tucking them in, reading them a bedtime story that's not only calming for you, but also for your kids. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there. It's a really good thing. That's for just an example. If you don't have kids, maybe reading yourself a bedtime story, right? Like reading a book. I like reading before bed in conjunction with that bedtime timer I just talked about. You could listen to some calming music, really good way to do it. Journaling is another really effective tool, a calming activity that you can use to help fix your sleep schedule, as this helps with anxiety and also trains your brain that, hey, when I am journaling, this is right before bedtime. So it can kind of retrain your brain to think. And then when actually fixing the sleep schedule and going from A to Z, starting small is super, super crucial. So maybe just doing 15 to 30 minutes earlier of your sleep one night. So say you go to bed at 9 o'clock one night, tomorrow, let's just say we're going to go to bed at 8:45, 15 minutes earlier, right? 15 minutes earlier. Try that for a couple days and then add on another 15 minutes. Go to 8:30 after 4 to 5 days, right? You're trying to build this up, just being consistent. One of the things you don't want to do at all costs is sleep in. This is going to cause a whole host of issues. You're going to set up your sleep schedule even worse. And I think just something to be said about sleeping in general. If you're trying to have the most consistent sleep patterns and just the good enough sleep in general, sleeping in is terrible for this. Sleeping in, you want to treat every day almost as if it's the same. If you're sick and you need to recover, this is kind of a different story, but ultimately trying to keep that sleep as consistent as possible. And then the last way we can kind of fix our sleep schedule is by giving yourself a time frame. So don't just say, oh, school starts tomorrow, so I'm going to start my new sleep schedule tonight. This is not going to be easy on you. Realize, for one, it's going to suck initially, but your body will change very, very rapidly, very, very quickly. So if your school starts in 2 weeks, maybe you're gonna do that technique we talked about earlier. Say you want to go to bed at 8:30, but you currently go to bed at 9:30. Maybe the first week you can try to go to bed at 9 o'clock to 9:15. And then the week after that, leading up to school, you can try going to bed at 8:45 to 9. And then the week actually of school, try to actually go to 8:30. So just kind of working yourself back up. But I think setting yourself up in a proper room is extremely crucial. And we'll actually talk about that in this next portion of this too. So we're going to go over some sleep hygiene tips and just talk about, generally speaking, how to get better sleep. This is something that I think so many people want in their lives. I know for myself, even personally, that I want better sleep too. And one of the things we're actually going to talk about is the different times of the day. Believe it or not, sleep starts the second you wake up. How well you will sleep the next night literally starts from the second you open your eyes and start moving through the day. So I kind of broke this up into things that we can do before bed, things that we should do in the daytime, and things that we should do when waking to hopefully improve our sleep hygiene and get better sleep for ourselves. So let's talk about before bed. The first thing that I always tell people is to make sure your room is cool. A lot of times people don't realize this or know this, but your body needs to actually lower a couple degrees in body temperature to fall asleep fully. And if it doesn't, guess what? You're not going to be able to fully sleep. The research on this, I actually don't know fully why this is. I would guess it's got to have something to do with trying to, I guess, reduce inflammation in the body and cool yourself off from the day. Yeah, I don't know. Being 98.6 degrees throughout the day consistently, I would guess would take a lot of difficulty to maintain that heat. So maybe dropping down in temperature can just be another way for your body to kind of literally cool itself off, but not be at that heat. So long story short, we need to keep our room cool. This isn't freezing, but you should get out of your bed if you're under covers, and it should feel like, oh, this is cold, I might need a jacket. That's step one. Another thing that we talked about in the previous section is phone and electronic usage. You should try to limit this, if not completely get rid of it. I put my phone in the other room. Before I go to bed, I actually have it on a charger in a completely separate room, so I'm not tempted to use it, not only when I'm going to bed at night, but also in the morning as well. I just completely cut myself off of that entirely, and that has helped tremendously. As I mentioned earlier in the podcast too, I also use the sunrise alarm. So about 10 minutes before I want to wake up, it will start to slowly increase the light in the room, which I find very peaceful. I actually usually wake up during that sunrise before my alarm even goes up anymore. So that's super handy. And then at nighttime too, it can do the opposite. So I can set a timer where it's really bright and then we'll slowly go down almost like a sunset in my room, which I think is amazing. I love it. Another thing we can do before bed is try some of those calming activities we talked about. So meditation, I love meditating. That was actually one of the reasons I started meditating, was to get better sleep, and it did help tremendously, and I still do it to this day. Although I do actually meditate in the morning, but I still do think it helps my sleep. That's regardless, besides the point. Journaling is a great way to write down all your feelings, all your thoughts, and help to decrease some anxiety, which can help before bed. Maybe some light stretching. That can help to decrease some overall tension in your body. And again, it's just a relaxing activity. You're trying to think of stuff that is relaxing for you, that you enjoy. Maybe this is a bath, maybe this is reading. There's so many things that you can do. In addition to this, I did talk about that bedtime alarm earlier. Setting a bedtime alarm is crucial. And how this might look for you is maybe 9 o'clock, you literally have an alarm on your phone. 7 a.m. in the morning, a lot of us, 6 or 7 a.m., we have an alarm to give us to wake up. You could do the same thing at night. Just have an alarm on your phone. And then that tells you that, hey, I need to go to bed within the next 30 minutes. It just gives you a verbal reminder, a kind of a haptic reminder, a hearing reminder that you're able to hear, and it gives you that trigger. It's time for bed. That is super crucial. Start setting actual bedtime alarms for yourself. Pillow positions, this is another thing. Some people might need a pillow in between their legs. Some people might need maybe one on their back. Trying to find different pillow positions can be crucial in improving your overall sleep quality while you're actually sleeping. And this is something that I play around with a lot, but some people, especially if you have chronic pain, you might need a lot of pillows to kind of cocoon yourself to have overall better sleep. And then the last thing that I wanted to touch on is just having mostly darkness. If you have any type of light in your room, light suppresses melatonin, and we'll talk about melatonin a little bit later in the podcast. But if you have light in your room, you're literally telling your body to stay awake. Don't go to bed, even though you're in bed. You're telling your body to stay awake. So those are some things you can do before bed or even during your bedtime. And then during the day, some other things that you want to consider is just taking short naps if you are somebody who does like taking naps. So I would say 15 to 30 minutes. It really depends on your overall tolerance as an individual. Some people are going to be able to get away with kind of longer naps. But what I want you to realize is that this really does mess with your overall sleep later in the day. And it might not seem like it, but it will. It 100% will, especially the sleep quality. I know for myself, I actually stopped taking naps a long time ago. I've got my sleep, knock on wood, pretty under control for the most part. But when I used to take naps, if it was longer than 10 minutes, I stayed up super late. Long story short, I couldn't go to bed right away. It was probably took me an extra hour and a half to actually fully go to bed. And I know a lot of people find this too. So if you do nap, find that tolerance, find that overall level for yourself. Having a stable blood sugar will also help your nighttime sleepiness. So if you're somebody who eats a bunch of carbs at one meal with not a lot of protein or fat, and then you eat carbs throughout the day, have another blood sugar spike, that will not only affect your overall sleepiness during the day, but it could, again, if it's affecting your sleepiness during the day, it likely could stem towards night. So if you get really tired because you have a huge blood sugar spike after your lunch at work, and then you feel like you need to take a nap, and then that messes your sleep later, guess what? That's a never-ending cycle. So anyways, trying to make your blood sugar stable is very, very crucial. If you are somebody who does work out, trying to not work out too late in the day is a great way to hopefully improve your overall sleep hygiene. And I wouldn't say not all workouts are the same. If it's very, very intense, I just don't even know if I would do it at all. If you're somebody who's used to it, you'll probably be okay. But as we talked about in this previous section, your body needs to lower its body temperature. So if you're doing something that's raising the body temperature quite a bit, that's going to be very, very tough for it to come down quite a ways. I know when I was playing hockey during this last summer, there was a couple like 90 to 100 degree days where I was playing hockey at like 9 p.m. at night. And after that game, it took me like 2 hours to actually fall asleep because my body was so hot. I literally could not cool down fast enough. So again, just something to consider if you work out. Try not to do it too late, ideally. And then monitor your fluid intake throughout the day. If you are somebody who drinks a lot of water, you should. Absolutely, that's great. But too much water close towards bedtime, that can lead you to waking up numerous times throughout the night. This is something that I struggle with. I like drinking a lot of water, but I'll drink a lot in the beginning of the day and then forget to during the middle of the day and try to make up for it at nighttime with my dinner. And that usually sets me up for not a good night of sleep. There's sometimes I really, really regret it, and I'm waking up 3 times to go to the bathroom because I chugged way too much water, and just not a good situation. Monitor your fluid intake. When you wake up, this is a whole other aspect of getting good sleep. So when you wake up, some of the things you want to try to do are get bright light as soon as you can within waking. Specifically sunlight. If you're in a place where you can actually go outside and view the sunlight, this is one of the best hacks to actually getting good sleep, because you are telling your body, your visual system is literally telling your brain, hey, it's now time to wake up. This is when I need to produce cortisol, which will help you wake up more, wake up quicker in the morning. And when you have a good rise of cortisol right in the morning, this can at the same time help you to go back to bed later at night. So that bright light exposure, specifically sunlight, but if it's only just bright light fluorescent lights, that's okay too. But ideally you want to try to get sunlight if you can. It's hard for me in the winter. I live in the Midwest, so during the winter I'm not able to get outside as much and get that sunlight, so I still try to have some bright light. I actually have one of these desk lamps. It's like a 10,000 lux lamp, which kind of mimics sunlight, so I use that a lot throughout the day, even in the summertime. Something to consider. Another thing that is hard to get people on board with, but taking cold showers right when you wake up, this can increase that cortisol quite a bit, which, as we talked about earlier, can help you to fall asleep later in the night and help you honestly just wake up from that adrenaline kick. That's tough to do. I actually just do a kind of a cold rinse. So I just dunk my head in cold water in the morning. I don't think it gives quite the same benefits, but it's still something that I do. And it definitely wakes me up right away. It's probably not quite to the same degree. Another thing that a lot of people do right when they wake up is drink coffee, drink caffeine, drink energy drinks, etc. They're tired, right? They want to wake up quickly. This is a really fatal error when talking about trying to optimize your sleep hygiene and overall energy through the rest of the day. And the reason because of this is when you sleep at night, there's this byproduct called adenosine. Adenosine is something that exists in ATP, which is basically energy molecules. And when we use ATP, the adenosine builds up in our body. And when it builds up when we sleep, this is in large part when it's cleared out of our body. With that said, though, after you wake up, let's say 1 to 2 hours after you wake up, there's still adenosine prevalent in your body. And what caffeine does is if you take it within that 1 to 2 hours after you wake, you're actually blunting the ability for adenosine to be fully ridded from your body. So I wouldn't say excreted, but basically the ability for it to clear from your body, it goes down. The problem with that is you're thinking, oh, I'm just going to block it. No problem. This is a huge problem actually though, because it doesn't go away. So you may block it in the interim, but this is why a lot of people get that slump in the afternoon, because that adenosine never fully got out of their system and the caffeine is slightly wearing off. So when that happens, the adenosine is now rebuilt into your body. This is in large part sleep inertia, your ability to wake up and get going in the day. This is why this really happens for the most part. It's that adenosine. It's that kind of like that grogginess. still persistent. So if you take caffeine right away, that's delaying that later in the day, which can then lead to that afternoon slump, which can lead to a nap, which can lead to all this never-ending cycle of poor sleep habits. So again, just something to consider. Try to delay caffeine if possible, 90 minutes to 2 hours after you wake up. I try to do this for myself, and then you're good to go. And then, of course, the last thing that we can do to get better sleep after waking is trying to work out or just get moving in general. I say working out, getting your heart rate up is great. Some people might not want to or be able to fully get a full workout in right when they wake up, but just getting moving in general, getting some blood flow in your body will help you tremendously for your sleep later at night, but also in the day. This is another thing that actually raises cortisol right when you wake up. So basically, the sooner you can work out after you wake up, the better it's going to be, not only for your energy throughout the day, but for that sleep later in night. So a couple of really good tools there that can improve your overall sleep quality quite a bit. And talking about sleep quality, something that I get asked super frequently is eating before bed. Does eating before bed make you fat? So let's dive into this. Some people think that certain foods, maybe it's carbohydrates, maybe it's protein, or maybe it's fat, specifically eating these before bed will make you fat. I want to dispel that right away. No, eating these things just in general will not make you fat at all, unless your calories are unless you're over consuming on calories. So if you need 2,500 calories a day to maintain your weight, and let's say eating before bed puts you over to, 2,700 calories. Yes, 100%, this will make you gain weight. You will get fat eating before bed. But that isn't because it was eating before bed. That was simply because you're eating more calories. Certain foods in general do not increase your chances of getting fat before bed. So sometimes people will think that, carbs make you fat. Carbs make you fat before bed. I shouldn't eat carbs. No, not at all. It does increase your overall calories though. And again, if your calories are increased, this could make you fat long term. This happens over a very long span. So this isn't just something that happens overnight. Calories in versus calories out. And actually, eating protein before bed is a good idea. Usually it's recommended to have some extra protein, 35 to 40 grams of protein even before bed, as this can really help recovery and help your overall sleep quite a bit better. Also, something important to note too, sometimes eating before bed might make it seem like you're getting fat simply because you're craving certain foods that are more, let's say, higher calories. So before bed, you get a sweet tooth or you get the munchies and you just eat a whole bag of chips. Yes, of course, this will make you fat. But again, that's just because you're eating an overall higher amount of calories, just generally speaking. Which, if you are eating an overall high amount of calories before bed, this is something to play in note too. If you do have GI distress or basically stomach issues, this can cause some really, really bad issues. I know sometimes I've eaten a lot before bed personally, and it really affects my overall sleep through the rest of the night. So in turn, does eating before bed make you fat? No, it does not. Certain food does not make you fat, eating it before bed or just in general. But you might crave different foods. You might crave kind of the sugary foods before bed, which are very high in calories, are easy to overeat, and can make you, of course, have more calories than you need to burn in a day, which when that happens, you will ultimately gain weight and gain fat. So this next thing I wanted to talk about is melatonin. And melatonin is actually a hormone that's produced in our body. But at the same time, when people think of melatonin, they also usually will think of the supplement melatonin. So I kind of want to dive into what will actually happen when you take melatonin, and is it really useful for sleep? So melatonin, as I just described, is a hormone that your body produces for sleep. usually around the time of bed, if you have normal sleep patterns. And a lot of times people will also take this as a supplement if they do have poor sleep. Usually 3 to 5 milligrams is kind of a starting point, and sometimes these will be in tabs, sometimes these will be in gummies. I know sometimes they have drinks. I've seen like little powdered drinks of these. I have taken melatonin before, and I've taken like chewable tabs. There's lots of different ones out there. When it comes to safety of these, they're actually fairly safe, especially if you're taking them in that 3 to 5 milligram basically dosage. The problem with melatonin is, and as we'll talk about in a second, is you may be able to get asleep quicker with it by taking exogenous melatonin, but your sleep quality will be incredibly poor. So you may fall asleep well, but the overall ability for your body to recover during that deep sleep and actually recover mentally too. We talked about sleep being a form of informal therapy. That doesn't happen as well if you're taking in melatonin, specifically that non-natural melatonin that your body doesn't produce. Your body produces it naturally, and that's great. That will help you fall asleep. But taking too much, it will knock you out. It'll act like a sedative, but just because you're sleeping doesn't mean you're actually having good, high-quality sleep. Some people that this might actually be useful for, though, is if you're going overseas and you're dealing with jet lag, maybe not even overseas. You're somebody who's, let's say, going from East Coast to West Coast. That's a very big jump in time zone, and maybe you have to work the next day at like a meeting or something. Using something like melatonin can be a good way to kind of fix your sleep schedule really quickly. Again, this is not good for long-term behavior, long-term benefits, but it can be good for kind of those certain circumstances. In addition to this, people who are shift workers, so they are maybe working at night from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., they might be beneficial for using melatonin to help them get to sleep, simply because they're already kind of in poor sleep patterns in general, and the detriments from taking melatonin far outweigh the potential detriments from actually not getting proper sleep. So this is kind of where you pick your poison. You know the sleep quality is not going to be the best, but at the same time, you're already working a job. Shift work just in general is not good for your overall sleep sanity, your physical health in general. So you're picking your poison with this one when it comes to that. And also non-consistent occurrences. There are some times where I just really have been stressed out, and maybe I can't fall asleep well. Or let's say you're a parent. This would be a great example. You're a parent and you just haven't had a good night's sleep in 5 nights and you're exhausted, but you're still super stressed. This might be a decent time to take melatonin as a way to get you at least some sleep. Again, your quality won't be the best, but getting some sleep will be good. With that said, though, if there is a long-term issue with this is something where you definitely want to consult a doctor, because your body will stop producing that melatonin naturally if you're giving it this exogenous melatonin, which can, of course, cause huge issues long-term on your overall health. So let's see here. So the next session we're actually going to talk about, I'm really excited to talk about this one. So it's on alcohol and sleep. So I'm getting this set up. Perfect. So a lot of people will ask me after melatonin, should I cut out caffeine and alcohol too? And I really am passionate about this one, because caffeine and alcohol can both affect your sleep incredibly greatly. Maybe not as much as melatonin, but it can still make a pretty profound effect, especially if you're consuming it for a very long time. So let's talk about caffeine first, how caffeine and alcohol affect sleep. So caffeine, I want you to first know that caffeine has what's called a quarter life, which is basically the amount of time it's in your body, of about 12 total hours. 12 total hours that caffeine is in your body. Let's say you have 100 milligrams of caffeine at noon. You have a cup of coffee. That's about a cup of coffee. 12 hours later, so at midnight, you would still have 25 milligrams of caffeine in your body circulating. And that's insane. A lot of people don't realize that. So if you're taking a lot of caffeine, maybe you're having 2-3 cups of coffee, maybe even later in the day, that's going to be literally circulating in your body throughout your entire sleep. So that causes a huge amount of issues. Your sleep quality will go down tremendously, and this is what we just talked about too with melatonin. Although you may be able to get a sleep fine, you may say to me like, hey Logan, I can pound a cup of coffee before bed and have no problems. This might be the case, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your overall sleep quality is going to be as good when you're doing that. So that's something to consider. Your sleep quality will go down tremendously. A good rule of thumb when it comes to caffeine is to try to limit it to 12 hours before bed, as we just talked about, since that quarter life of caffeine is 12 hours. And then also in the morning, to avoid taking caffeine 90 or more minutes after you wake up. And this is something we talked about earlier, but we'll go over it again. The reason we're trying to delay caffeine intake after 90 minutes is because adenosine is built up in your body. And this adenosine is in large part what makes us tired at night and also a little groggy in the morning. So once that adenosine clears out from our body in the morning, that's when we can start feeling a little bit better. We don't feel as groggy. We actually feel ready for the day. Caffeine blunts the ability for adenosine to be cleared from your body. So by taking caffeine right when you wake up, specifically maybe coffee, you're delaying that adenosine to then come later in the day. So that's why a lot of time people get that afternoon slump. That often happens with taking caffeine right in the middle of the day. And then also too, caffeine can increase anxiety in some individuals. So if you're somebody who notices you are at an increased risk of having anxiety, or you're just highly anxious in general, caffeine can make that much worse. And then not only just the caffeine aspect of it, but the anxiety aspect of poor sleep. A lot of times if you're overthinking or just too anxious to fall asleep, this is going to cause quite a few issues as well. Alcohol isn't much better. Alcohol, again, we did another podcast on this earlier. You can check that out on our channel. Alcohol is not good for a lot of things, and especially your sleep. When we talk about standard drinks, so one standard drink a day is the recommended amount that's considered moderate drinking for females. 2 standard drinks a day is for males. Anytime you consume even just a standard drink of alcohol, this decreases your overall quality of sleep. Even the standard drink, right? And you might be sleeping enough, and you might be saying like, okay, but I can sleep before bed. It makes me tired. It makes me loosened up. That may be 100% true, but as we talked about with caffeine, just because you're able to get to sleep well doesn't mean it's going to persist long term. It doesn't mean that you're actually going to stay asleep, but also the other problem we talked about, this is with caffeine too, the quality of your sleep is extremely poor. That's the exact same thing with alcohol. You might be able to fall asleep well, but the quality is not going to be as good. Caffeine and alcohol both dehydrate you as well. And a lot of times when we're dehydrated, we don't feel quite as energetic, quite as vigorous for our daily activities as well. So caffeine and alcohol can be kind of this never-ending loop of taking it, feeling like we need it to get us through the day. But then once we get to the point where we need to have good quality sleep, it becomes much, much trickier for ourselves to actually get that good quality sleep. So speaking of good quality sleep, can a lack of good quality sleep cause death? And to answer this question, I want to first give you an analogy looking at a car. Let's think of a car that has not good oil. It needs its oil changed. Maybe you need to check its tires. Maybe we even need to check its brakes. Maybe it's just falling apart, generally speaking. All of these issues over time will cause the car to break down. Maybe not one of them, maybe not two of them, but collectively it will cause essentially death of the car. All of the detriments will compound long term. They are all correlated. Your body is very similar to this. That sleeping is kind of the maintenance, that is the oil changes, that's the tires, that's changing the brakes. Those are all the maintenance things that can be done with your sleep. And as we talked about earlier in the podcast, if you don't get enough sleep, you might have poor blood sugar regulation. You might have an increased risk of heart disease. You might have more chronic inflammation and chronic pain. Your body, your brain health isn't going to be quite as good. Your body isn't going to just be able to react as well and move and just generally recover from its full capabilities. So if you're not recovering long term, that can 100% cause death. All of those things will compound, just like the car example, to cause death. Again, this isn't really something you see where somebody is like just staying up for 40 hours and they just die. I'm sure it can happen, but what usually happens before this point is your body gets so tired that you literally just shut down. Like your muscles give out. You just literally are forcing yourself to fall asleep. That will usually happen before you would actually die. With that said, though, all of these things can be amplified tremendously when we're talking about an overall lack of sleep. And the last portion of this article, podcast, I should say, is talking about sleep being for the weak. And this is something that I'm really, really passionate about. Sleep is for the weak. And why do people often think that sleep is for the weak? This is a huge societal issue that we need to start reframing when it comes to sleep. Society often looks at sleep as being laziness. If you're not in the office doing all your work all day, that you're less of a person than somebody else who's spending coming into the office early, staying in late, maybe neglecting your sleep, just saying I can sleep when I'm dead. The interesting thing about that quote is that if you don't get enough sleep, you will die very soon, much sooner than somebody who does get proper sleep. Sleep is so necessary. Sleep is not laziness. And getting enough sleep for yourself is one of the best things that you can do to improve your long-term health, but also just to make you contribute better to society. So if you want to be a better worker in your overall life, yes, sleep will help that tremendously. Sleeping can increase productivity, your memory improves, your mood and cognition improves. This is what we talked about earlier. If you're somebody who is trying to work, maybe you're a student, or maybe you are somebody who is maybe you just have a big project and you're thinking, what's a better use of my time? Should I do this project for another hour? Should I study for another hour? Should I stress myself out for another hour? Or should I get sleep? Another hour of sleep. Sleep would likely be, in most categories, a good chance. I know sometimes there's deadlines and you do need to 100% do those. But at the same time, we need to really appreciate that sleep. If you do go by the adage, I'll sleep when I'm dead, you will likely die much sooner than somebody who really does appreciate sleep. And just remember at the end of the day that sleeping helps with your immediate health, so your mood, how you're feeling, your overall emotions with people, but at the same time, it helps with your long-term health too. So decreasing your risk of blood sugar issues, decreasing your risk of heart disease, decreasing high blood pressure, decreasing your risk of dementia, chronic inflammation, all the other comorbidities and diseases from not getting enough sleep. We really need to reframe what getting good sleep is for ourselves and for others, and trying to make it a priority for the society in its whole. Thanks again for joining me for this podcast. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We make videos helping individuals of all abilities inside the gym and become healthier in life. Otherwise, we will see you in the next one, and we'll see you later. Peace out.